In 1997, Garry Kasparov was at his prime. He was the highest rated chess player in the world, and he was also the world champion, reigning world champion for around 10 years at this point, as he goes up for his third consecutive year facing the IBM computer program called Deep Blue. Deep Blue would draw or lose to Kasparov in years prior, but in 1997, the program finally defeated the world champion and reigning #1 player, ending the era of human dominance in chess and beginning the era of computer dominance. Chess is a game of strategy, pattern recognition, and memorization. Chess players have been honing these skills for centuries and have believed to solve aspects of chess at various points in time. Chess computers have completely changed our outlook upon chess, and there's certainly no one today that would claim they have solved any aspect of chess at all. The computer used to be laughed at for trying to beat a human at their own game, and now humans are an important tool in preparing me for my games, alongside Magnus Carlsen, who says himself that computers are an important tool for me preparing for my games. Emanuel Lasker was the second world chess champion when earning his championship from William Steinitz in 1894. He would retain his title for the longest time in chess history, 27 years. Emanuel Lasker was one of the first and earliest players to use a style that was similar to a computer. His style changed and was very flexible depending on the day, the person he was playing, and how he felt about playing. This style would lead him to win the championship and consecutively continue winning until eventually a player came by to stop him. Lasker pushed the boundaries of competitive chess to a great degree. People were very upset that he was world champion for so long, and they felt that they needed to advance and improve to a degree where they could beat him in a very convincing way. And this did occur when the chess machine, his nickname, Jose Raul Capablanca. I cannot roll my R's, but that is how you should properly pronounce his middle name. Jose Capablanca was the first player to defeat Lasker in a world championship title in over 20 years in 1921. His natural style dazzled the chess world, and Capablanca was named the human chess machine by his peers. His play was so natural and intuitive that it seemed like he wasn't even trying to calculate or analyze the game. He just played moves, and they happened to be the best moves he could play in the position. He reigned as world champion for 7 years, and in these 7 years, he pushed the chess community to up their game to where they could counter his natural and intuitive style, to where they would specifically counter his openings, his tactics, and the common strategies that he would employ in his games, effectively not playing chess against the board, but against the player himself. Capablanca's play was so incredibly accurate and precise that when we will go on today to analyze his past games with our incredibly strong computer, stronger than any chess player has ever lived or could ever dream of being, his moves are still considered the best moves you could possibly play, even today. Moves that he would come up with at the board on the spot. It wouldn't be until Garry Kasparov came around where he would become the most dominant chess player in chess history prior, let's say, to the 21st century. Garry Kasparov was known for his aggressive style, especially in his early career. He was incredibly aggressive, but he succeeded at this very well. His aggressive style is very reminiscent of some of the strongest computers we see today, as they find aggression as one of the best ways to gain a quick advantage on an opponent at the highest level that only computers can play at. Garry Kasparov would have an ELO of 2856. He was the youngest world champion of all time at the time, obtaining the world championship at the young age of 22, just old enough to drink. Garry was an opening theoretician, putting a lot of effort and focus specifically into his openings rather than the entire game itself. Garry even has 2 specific openings that are mainline and commonly used, named after him and or another player as well. When Garry would face Deep Blue, like I said previously, he had already played against Deep Blue 2 years prior and beaten Deep Blue in each of those 3 matches each year. It wouldn't be until 1997 that Gary would finally slip, and he would lose 1 out of the 3 games, drawing the other 2. This is something that would certainly mark the end of the human era of chess, as the best player in the world by far lost in a classical game to a computer. Of course, even though he would draw the other 2 games, and this would give him some notoriety, of course, computers weren't good enough to easily or convincingly beat top-rated chess players consistently. It would not be until the era of Magnus Carlsen, who is the current highest-rated chess player in the world, and he is, or was, the reigning world champion of chess, until he voluntarily gave up his title as the competition was not enough for him. Carlsen has grown up chess-wise in an era where the computer dominates, where every player looks to a computer to confirm whether their ideas and conceptions of chess are right or wrong. And people live by the computer by law. There are players who play only by what the computer says and neglect a lot of their own intuition and tactics. Magnus, he is known as the Mozart of chess, that is his nickname, and he nearly defeated but ultimately drew Garry Kasparov when he was just 13 years old. Magnus is one of the most prominent players who have risen in the era of the computer, and this can be seen in the modern style of chess that him and his peers follow. A style of chess that focuses not on a specific opening or a general flexibility or a consistent analysis and intuition. It focuses more on an in-depth understanding of the entire game, the specific aspects of the game, like the opening, middle game, and end game, and how those 3 parts play into each other as a whole. This perspective is called the modern chess perspective, or the modern chess style, and this style is pervasive. There currently are no top players who do not follow this style, let's say opposed to an aggressive or defensive style, which has been very popular prior to the computer. Overall, players have certainly had to adapt over time to a computer-like mindset of chess, as we've seen with Emanuel Lasker, who started with a very loose interpretation of what it meant to not strictly play the board, as he was more flexible, as we see Jose Raul Capablanca be very intuitive, very accurate, and then as we see Garry Kasparov nearing the end of the human era, or ending the human era, where he was still a specialist in openings, though his game was certainly more universal than players prior to him. Overall, chess has rapidly developed throughout the 19th century, and it has rapidly evolved alongside various sports, not just chess. But of course, in this aspect, chess is the sport that denoted when the human era of intelligence sort of ended, as many would point to Deep Blue as that moment.